Listen carefully. Your emotions are not your strength. They are your biggest liability. Every time you react instead of think, you lose. Every time you let feelings control your decisions, you fall behind. Winners don't operate on emotions. They operate on discipline, logic, and control. This audiobook will teach you one thing: how to stop being ruled by how you feel and start making decisions that actually move your life forward. If you don't fix this, nothing else will matter.
Chapter 1. Stop letting feelings make your decisions. Most people don't have a decision-making problem. They have an emotional control problem. They feel something, and then they act. They get angry, they react. They feel insecure, they hesitate. They feel excited, they rush. And then later, they regret it. That's the cycle. Emotion first, regret later. You need to break that cycle, now. Because here's the truth. Feelings are temporary. Decisions are permanent. Say it again. Feelings are temporary. Decisions are permanent. You don't build a strong life based on temporary emotions. You build it on controlled decisions. You have a choice every single time. Let's make this real. You're at work. Your boss says something you don't like. Maybe it's criticism. Maybe it's unfair. You feel disrespected. Your chest tightens. Your ego kicks in. And in that moment, you want to quit. You want to react. You want to prove something. That's emotion. And most people obey it. They send the message. They walk out. They burn the bridge. And a week later, reality hits. Bills are still there. Opportunities are gone. And now they're stuck. Why? Because they made a permanent decision based on a temporary feeling. Feelings are temporary. Decisions are permanent. Winners don't do that. Winners feel the same anger. They feel the same frustration. They are not robots, but they don't obey it. That's the difference. A winner pauses. That's the first skill you need to build. Not intelligence, not talent. Control. The ability to pause. When emotion rises, you don't move. You don't speak. You don't decide. You pause. You create space between what you feel and what you do. That space, that's where power lives. You have a choice. You have a choice. Let's go deeper. Emotion is fast. Logic is slow. Emotion says, do it now. Logic says, think first. Emotion wants relief. Logic wants results. And if you're honest, most of your bad decisions came from speed. You moved too fast. You reacted too quickly. You didn't think. That's the key. It's not about emotion. It's about control. You don't need to eliminate emotions. That's impossible. You need to stop letting them drive. Here's what winners do differently. They zoom out. They ask one simple question. Will this decision still make sense in 1 year? Not 1 hour, not tomorrow, 1 year. That question changes everything, because emotion lives in the present, but success is built in the future. You have a choice. Think short-term or think long-term. Let's take another example. You feel lazy. You don't feel like working. You don't feel like going to the gym. You don't feel like doing anything hard. So what do? If you follow emotion, you stop. You delay. You scroll. You waste time. And it feels good, temporarily. But what happens long-term? You fall behind. You lose momentum. You lose confidence. Because again, feelings are temporary. Decisions are permanent. Winners understand this. They don't ask, what do I feel like doing? They ask, what needs to be done? That's the shift. That's the upgrade. That's how you start thinking like a winner. You need to install a new rule in your life, a non-negotiable rule. Never make important decisions in an emotional state. Not when you're angry, not when you're sad, not when you're overly excited. Because in those moments, you are not thinking clearly. You are reacting. And reaction is weakness. You have a choice. pause, or regret. Here's a practical system. Simple, but powerful. Next time you feel a strong emotion, stop. Don't speak. Don't act. Wait. Give it time. Hours, sometimes a full day. Let the emotion pass, because it will pass. It always does. And then, when your mind is calm, then you decide. That's control. That's discipline. That's power. Understand this clearly. Your life right now is the result of your past decisions, and most of those decisions were emotional. Impulsive spending, bad relationships, missed opportunities, burned bridges. It wasn't bad luck, it was lack of control. But here's the good news. You can fix it, starting now. From this moment forward, you don't move based on feelings. You move based on standards. You don't react, you respond. You don't rush, you think. You don't chase comfort, you choose growth. You have a choice every moment. Say it again, lock it in. Feelings are temporary, decisions are permanent. Again, feelings are temporary, decisions are permanent. This is not just a phrase, this is a rule. Live by it and your life changes. Ignore it and you stay stuck. Control your decisions and you control your future. That's the game. Not talent, not luck. Control. You've been letting emotions decide your direction. That ends now. Because winners don't drift. They decide. Calmly, logically, deliberately. You've taken the first step. You've stopped letting feelings control your decisions. Now it's time to go deeper. Because even when you don't act on emotions, they can still control how you think, and that's just as dangerous.
Chapter 2. Your emotions are not facts. Let's get something clear. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true. Read that again. Just because you feel it doesn't make it real. This is where most people lose. They don't separate feelings from facts. They treat emotions like evidence. I feel like a failure. I feel like this won't work. I feel like they don't respect me. And then they build their entire life around those feelings. That's the mistake. Because here's the truth. Feelings lie, reality doesn't. Say it again. Feelings lie, reality doesn't. You have to understand this if you want control. If you don't, your mind will keep sabotaging you. Your brain is not designed to make you successful. It's designed to keep you comfortable. That's the key. Comfort, not growth. So what does it do? It creates stories. It creates doubt. It creates fear. Not because those things are true, but because they keep you safe. You try something new? Your brain says, this won't work. You fail once. Your brain says, you're not good enough. You get rejected? Your brain says, stop trying. None of that is fact. It's protection. And if you don't challenge it, you'll believe it. You have a choice. Believe your feelings or question them. Let's make it practical. You try something, maybe a business, maybe a skill, maybe content creation, and it doesn't work immediately. Now you feel like a failure. That feeling hits hard. It feels real. It feels convincing. But is it true? No. One failed attempt does not equal failure. That's logic. But your emotion doesn't care about logic. It jumps to conclusions. That's what emotions do. They exaggerate. They distort. Feelings lie. Reality doesn't. Reality says, you tried once. You learned something. Improve. Emotion says, you failed. Stop. You have a choice. Which voice do you follow? Weak people follow feelings. Strong people question them. That's the difference. A weak mind says, I feel like I can't do this. A strong mind says, is that actually true? That question is power. Ask it every time. Is this fact or just a feeling? Most of the time, it's just a feeling. And feelings change. That's the key. If it can change, it can't be trusted. Think about your past. There were things you once felt strongly about, things you were sure were true. Fear, doubt, insecurity. And now? They're gone, or they don't matter anymore. So what happened? The feeling changed, which means it was never solid, it was never reliable. But the decisions you made based on those feelings, those stayed. That's the danger. That's why you need control. Let's break another illusion. You feel like people are judging you. You walk into a room, you post something online, you speak up, and your mind says, they're watching, they're judging, they're criticizing. That feeling is strong, but is it real? No. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves. They're not focused on you. But your brain creates that illusion to keep you small, to keep you quiet, to keep you safe. Again, feelings lie, reality doesn't. Here's what winners do. They don't trust their first thought. They don't trust their first feeling. They analyze. They step back. They look at facts. What actually happened? What can be measured? What can be improved? That's how you grow. Not by reacting emotionally, but by thinking objectively. It's not about how you feel, it's about what's real. That's the key. You need to build a new habit. Every time you feel something negative, doubt, fear, insecurity, pause and ask, where is the evidence? Not the feeling, the evidence. If you can't prove it, it's not fact. It's just emotion. And emotion is unreliable. You have a choice. Accept it or challenge it. Let's talk about overthinking. Overthinking is just emotion pretending to be logic. It feels like you're analyzing, but you're not. You're just replaying fears, doubts, worst-case scenarios. There's no structure, no solution, just emotion in a loop. That's why it drains you. That's why it keeps you stuck. Because, again, you're treating feelings like facts. Break that pattern. Here's the correction. Write things down. Take the situation out of your head and put it in front of you. Ask, what actually happened? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What can I improve? Now you're dealing with reality, not emotion. That's how winners operate. You need to understand this clearly. Your mind will lie to you, especially when things get hard. It will tell you to stop, to quit, to stay comfortable. Not because you're incapable, but because it wants safety. You cannot trust that voice blindly. You must question it. That's discipline. Say it again. Lock it in. Feelings lie, reality doesn't. Again, feelings lie, reality doesn't. This is how you take control of your mind, not by eliminating emotion, but by refusing to believe it without evidence. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need to feel ready. You need clarity, and clarity comes from truth, not emotion. From now on, you don't say, I feel like. You say, what are the facts? That shift changes everything. It removes doubt. It removes confusion. It gives you direction. You're no longer controlled by your emotions, and you're no longer fooled by them either, because now you understand. They are signals, not truths. You've learned to separate feelings from facts, but there's another level. Even when you know your emotions are not real, they can still control your reactions, and that's where most people break. So now it's time to take full control.
Chapter 3. Control your reactions. Control your life. Life is not fair. People will disrespect you. Plans will fail. Things will go wrong. You already know that. So here's the real question. What are you going to do about it? Because life is not about what happens. It's about how you respond. That's the difference between winners and everyone else. Read that again. It's not about the event. It's about the reaction. And here's the truth you need to lock in. You can't control events, but you control your response. Say it again. You can't control events, but you control your response. That's your power. If you don't control your reactions, you don't control your life. Most people are reactive. Something happens, they get triggered. Someone says something, they get defensive. Something goes wrong, they panic. That's automatic. That's weak programming. And if you live like that, you will always be controlled by external things. Other people decide your mood. Situations decide your direction. Problems decide your behavior. That's not power. That's slavery. You have a choice. React or respond. Let's break this down. Reaction is instant. Response is controlled. Reaction is emotional. Response is logical. Reaction is weak. Response is powerful. That's the key. Most people never learn the difference. They think reacting is normal. It is, but normal doesn't win. Let's make it real. Someone criticizes you. Maybe it's harsh, maybe it's unfair. Immediately you feel attacked. Your ego steps in. You want to defend yourself, explain yourself, prove them wrong. That's reaction. And most people stop there. They argue, they get emotional, they waste energy, and nothing improves. Now look at the winner. Same situation, same criticism, but a different response. They pause. They don't rush to defend. They don't let ego take control. They ask one question. Is there anything useful here? That's power. Because even bad criticism can contain truth, and truth helps you grow. That's the difference. Weak people protect their ego. Strong people improve their results. You need to understand this deeply. Every reaction has a cost. Anger costs clarity. Panic costs performance. Ego costs growth. And most people pay that price daily, without realizing it, because they never stop. They never pause. They just react. You need to build a new standard, a new rule. No immediate reactions. That's it. Simple but powerful. Something happens, you don't react. You breathe, you observe, you think. Then you decide. That gap, that pause, that's where control lives. That's where winners are built. You have a choice. Let's go deeper. Imagine something goes wrong in your life. A business problem, a financial setback, a mistake. Your first instinct is panic. Your mind starts racing. Worst-case scenarios, fear, stress. That's reaction. And panic makes everything worse. You lose focus. You make bad decisions. You create more problems. Now look at a controlled mind. Same situation, but no panic. Just calm. Just focus. They ask, what's the next move? Not why me, not this is unfair. Just action. That's power. You can't control events, but you control your response. Here's something most people don't realize. Your reaction becomes your identity. If you always react emotionally, people see you as unstable. If you stay calm under pressure,
people see you as strong. Your reputation is built on your reactions. That's the key. Not what you say, not what you claim, but how you respond when things go wrong. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need to match energy. If someone is loud, you stay quiet. If someone is emotional, you stay controlled. If someone tries to provoke you, you don't take the bait. That's discipline. That's strength. Let's talk about triggers. Everyone has them. Certain words, certain people, certain situations. They push a button and you react instantly. That's not control. That's programming. And if someone can trigger you, they can control you. Think about that. If they can control your emotions, they control your behavior. That means they control you. You have a choice. Stay triggered or take control. Here's how you fix it. You identify your triggers. What makes you angry? What makes you defensive? What makes you lose control? Write it down. Be honest. Then prepare. Next time it happens, you don't react. You expect it. You stay ready. That's discipline. This is not easy. Let's be real. Controlling your reactions is hard because emotions are fast. They hit instantly. But that's exactly why it matters, because most people won't do it. Most people will stay reactive, and that's why most people stay average. It's not about what happens to you. It's about how you handle it. That's the game. That's always been the game. You can't control the world, but you can control yourself, and that's enough. Say it again. Lock it in. You can't control events, but you control your response. Again, you can't control events, but you control your response. This is your power. Use it. From now on, you don't react immediately. You don't let emotions take over. You pause. You think. You choose your response. Every time. No exceptions. Because when you control your reactions, you control your life. That's the shift. That's the transformation. You've learned to control your reactions. Now it's time to go even deeper, because control doesn't just come from reacting differently. It comes from creating space before action. That space is everything.
You don't have an emotion problem. You have a timing problem. You feel, and then you act. Too fast, too impulsive, too uncontrolled. That's why you lose. Because winners don't eliminate emotion, they delay it. That's the difference. They feel the same anger, the same frustration, the same pressure, but they don't move immediately. They wait, and in that waiting, they win. Here's the rule you need to live by. Pause, think, then act. Say it again. Pause, think, then act. That's the key. Most people collapse the process, feeling to action. No space, no control, no thinking. That's dangerous, because emotion is unstable. It changes fast, it exaggerates, it pushes you to extremes. And if you act inside that state, you create damage, permanent damage. Pause, think, then act. Let's make it real. You're angry. Someone disrespects you, says something wrong, pushes your buttons. Your first instinct? Respond immediately. Send the message, raise your voice, prove your point. That's emotion, and it feels powerful in the moment, but it's not power, it's loss of control. Because later, when the emotion fades, you see it clearly. You said too much, you reacted too hard, you made it worse. Why? Because you didn't wait. Now look at the disciplined mind. Same situation, same anger, but no reaction, no message, no outburst, just silence, just control. They wait, hours, sometimes a full day. And when they finally respond, it's calm, it's precise, it's effective. That's power. Not in reacting fast, but in responding right. You have to understand this. Emotion is a wave. It rises, it peaks, then it falls. Always. No emotion lasts forever. Not anger, not fear, not excitement. But when you act at the peak, you make decisions at your weakest point. That's the mistake. That's why you need to delay. Let the wave pass, then decide. Pause, think, then act. This applies to everything, not just anger, excitement too. You see an opportunity, you get hyped, you want to jump in fast. That's emotion. And fast decisions often lead to bad outcomes, bad investments, bad partnerships, bad commitments, because you didn't think, you rushed. It's not about emotion, it's about discipline. That's the key. You need to install a system, a rule, a delay rule. For anything important, you don't decide immediately. You wait, 24 hours if needed. You step back. You remove yourself from the emotional state, and then you analyze. What are the facts? What are the risks? What are the long-term consequences? Now you're thinking. Now you're in control. You have a choice. React fast or respond smart. Most people choose speed. Winners choose control. Let's talk about something deeper. Why is delaying so hard? Because your brain wants relief. Emotion creates pressure. Anger wants release. Fear wants escape. Excitement wants action. And acting quickly gives temporary relief. That's why you do it. But relief is not the goal. Results are. That's the shift. Stop chasing relief. Start chasing outcomes. Here's a powerful reframe. When you feel a strong emotion, that's not a signal to act. That's a signal to wait. Think about that. The stronger the emotion, the longer you should delay. That's discipline. That's control. Let's make it practical again. You get a message that triggers you. Instead of replying instantly, you close it. You step away. You let time pass. You calm down. Now your response is different. Shorter, cleaner, more effective. No emotion, just logic. That's how winners communicate. Another example. You feel like quitting something. A job, a project, a goal. In that moment, it feels right. It feels justified. But it's just emotion, temporary. So what do? You don't quit. You wait. You give it time. And most of the time, that feeling disappears, and you realize quitting would have been a mistake. Feelings are temporary. Decisions are permanent. And delay protects you from that mistake. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need to respond immediately. Silence is allowed. Waiting is allowed. Thinking is required. This is how you separate yourself, not by being faster, but by being more controlled. Anyone can react. Few can wait. And that's why few win. Say it again. Lock it in. Pause, think, then act. Again, pause, think, then act. This is your new standard. Not sometimes, every time. From now on, you don't send emotional messages. You don't make impulsive decisions. You don't act under pressure. You delay. You think. You execute with clarity. Because the moment you create space, you take back control. And when you control your actions, you control your outcomes. That's the game. You've learned to delay emotion. Now it's time to replace it with something stronger. Because removing emotion is not enough. You need a system that drives action even when you don't feel like it.
Chapter 5. Discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation is a lie. It feels powerful. It feels exciting. It feels like the answer. But it's not. Because motivation is emotional, and emotions are unstable. Some days you feel driven. Some days you feel nothing. And if your actions depend on how you feel, your life will be inconsistent. That's the problem. You start strong, then you disappear.
You push hard, then you stop. You get inspired, then you fade. Why? Because you're relying on motivation, and motivation doesn't last. That's the key. Winners don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline, structure, routine, standards, things that don't change based on mood. That's the difference. Motivation says, do it when you feel ready. Discipline says, do it because it's time. And here's the rule you need to adopt. Don't feel it, do it. Say it again. Don't feel it, do it. Let's make this real. You wake up. Some days you feel energized. Other days you feel tired. Now what? If you follow motivation, you only work on the days you feel good. And that means half your life is wasted because you won't feel good every day. But if you follow discipline, it doesn't matter how you feel. You get up, you execute, you move. That's power. Think about the gym. Motivation-based person, I'll go when I feel like it. So what happens? They go once, maybe twice, then they stop because they don't feel like it anymore. Now look at a disciplined person. I go at 7 a.m. every day. No thinking, no debating, no emotion, just action. And over time, they transform. That's the difference. Not intensity, consistency. And consistency comes from discipline. You have a choice. Wait to feel ready or act regardless. Most people wait. They wait for the right mood, the right time, the right energy. And they wait forever. Because those conditions rarely come. That's the trap. Here's the truth. You will not feel like doing what's required. Not every day. Not even most days. That's normal. That's not a problem. That's the process. It's not about feeling. It's about discipline. That's the key. Let's go deeper. Why do people rely on motivation? Because it feels easier. When you're motivated, action feels natural. You don't have to push. You don't have to force it. But that's exactly why it's dangerous, because it trains you to depend on a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. Discipline is different. Discipline is hard. It requires effort, control, and commitment, but it works every time. Discipline removes decision-making. That's powerful, because most people don't fail due to lack of ability. They fail because they keep deciding, should I work today? Should I go to the gym today? Should I start now or later? Too many decisions, too much hesitation. Discipline eliminates that. There is no question. There is no debate. It's already decided. You just follow the system. You don't need their permission. You don't need motivation. You need structure, a schedule, a plan, a standard. And once it's set, you follow it, no matter what. Let's make this practical. Pick one area of your life. Work, fitness, learning. Set a fixed time. Not flexible, not optional, fixed. And every day, at that time, you show up, no matter how you feel. Tired? Show up. Unmotivated? Show up. Distracted? Show up. Because again, don't feel it, do it. At first, it will feel hard. Your mind will resist. It will give you excuses. Not today. Start tomorrow. You deserve a break. That's emotion. That's weakness. Ignore it. You have a choice. Listen to excuses or follow your standard. Over time, something changes. It becomes automatic. You stop thinking. You stop negotiating. You just do. That's when discipline becomes identity. That's when you become dangerous. Understand this clearly. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. And in the long run, consistency beats intensity every time. Look at any successful person. They don't rely on motivation. They have systems, daily routines, non-negotiable habits. They don't wake up and ask, do I feel like it? They already know the answer. They do it anyway. You need to reach that level.
where action is automatic, where feelings don't matter, where standards drive everything. That's how you win. Say it again. Lock it in. Don't feel it. Do it. Again. Don't feel it. Do it. This is your new rule. Not sometimes. Every day. From now on, you don't wait for motivation. You don't depend on emotion. You build discipline. You build structure. You build consistency. And you follow it. No excuses. Because the moment you stop relying on feelings, you become unstoppable. That's the shift. That's the transformation. You've replaced motivation with discipline, but there's another weakness that keeps people emotional, a hidden one that makes you seek approval and lose control. Now it's time to eliminate it.
Chapter 6. Stop seeking validation. It weakens you. You are not weak because you lack ability. You are weak because you need approval. Read that again. You don't fail because you can't do the work. You fail because you keep looking around, waiting for someone to approve you, to like you, to agree with you, to validate you. That's the trap. And here's the truth you need to accept. Validation is a trap. Say it again. Validation is a trap. The moment you depend on validation, you lose control, because now your actions are not yours anymore. They belong to other people. Their opinions decide your moves. Their reactions control your emotions. Their approval defines your confidence. That's not strength. That's dependency. You have a choice. Seek approval or build independence. Let's make it real. You post something online. Now what? You check the likes, the comments, the shares, again and again. Why? Because you want validation. You want proof that you're doing well, that people approve, that you matter. And if the response is low, you feel bad. You doubt yourself. You question your work. You lose momentum. Nothing changed about your effort. Nothing changed about your ability. Only one thing changed, the reaction of others, and that controlled your state. That's weakness. Now look at someone disciplined. They post, and then they move on. No checking, no emotional attachment, no dependency, because they're not doing it for validation. They're doing it for progress. That's the shift. It's not about approval. It's about discipline. That's the key. Validation makes you emotional because it puts your value in someone else's hands. If they approve, you feel good. If they don't, you feel bad. That's unstable. That's dangerous because people are inconsistent. Their opinions change. Their attention shifts. Their standards vary. So if you depend on them, you will always feel uncertain. You don't need their permission to start, to grow, to improve. You don't need anyone to say you're good enough. You prove it through action, through consistency, through results. That's real confidence. Let's go deeper. Why do people seek validation? Because it feels safe. If others approve, you feel secure. You feel accepted. But that safety is fake, because the moment approval disappears, so does your confidence. That's the problem. You built your identity on something external, and external things are unstable. Winners build internal validation. They don't ask, do they like it? They ask, did I execute properly? They don't chase applause. They chase progress. They don't need recognition. They need results. That's power. You have to shift your standard. Stop measuring yourself by reactions. Start measuring yourself by actions. Did you show up? Did you do the work? Did you improve? That's it. That's the only validation that matters.
Let's talk about something most people won't admit. Validation slows you down, because when you care about approval, you hesitate, you overthink, you second guess, you hold back. You don't say what you need to say. You don't do what you need to do, because you're afraid of judgment. That's the cost, and it's a high cost. You have a choice: be liked or be effective. Most people choose to be liked. That's why they stay average. They play safe. They avoid risk. They stay comfortable. But comfort doesn't win. Execution does. Let's make this practical. From now on, you stop checking for approval. You post and move on. You work and move on. You build and move on. No refreshing, no waiting, no emotional attachment. You focus on the next action. That's discipline. Another shift. Stop explaining yourself. You don't need to justify your decisions. You don't need to convince people. You don't need to prove anything. Your results will speak, eventually. But until then, silence, work, consistency. You will lose some people. That's part of it. When you stop seeking validation, some won't like it. They'll call you distant, arrogant, different. Good. That means you're changing. That means you're growing. Because the truth is, most people are trapped. Trapped in approval, trapped in opinions, trapped in fear of judgment. And they want you there too. Don't join them. Say it again. Lock it in. Validation is a trap. Again, validation is a trap. The sooner you understand this, the faster you grow. From now on, you don't work for applause. You don't move for approval. You don't depend on opinions. You build, quietly, consistently, independently. Because when you remove validation, you remove emotional weakness. And when you remove emotional weakness, you gain control. That's the transformation. You no longer need approval. Now you can think clearly. But there's another level. Even without validation, if you think short-term, you will still lose. So now it's time to expand your vision.
Most people are not failing because they are incapable. They are failing because they are short-sighted. They think about now. They act for now. They choose comfort now. And they pay for it later. That's the pattern. Emotion lives in the present. Success is built in the future. If you keep choosing what feels good right now, you will destroy what could have been later. That's the truth. And here's the rule you need to live by. Short-term emotion, long-term loss. Say it again. Short-term emotion, long-term loss. Every emotional decision is focused on comfort, right now. Not next year, not 5 years from now. Right now. I feel like buying this. I feel like skipping today. I feel like relaxing instead of working. That's emotional thinking. And it feels harmless, but it adds up, day by day, decision by decision, until one day you look at your life and realize you traded your future for temporary comfort. You have a choice. Comfort now or growth later. Most people choose comfort. That's why most people stay average. Let's make it real. You get money. What do? If you think emotionally, you spend it. Things you don't need, things that feel good in the moment. And for a short time, you feel satisfied. But later, nothing changed. No growth, no progress, no improvement. Now look at long-term thinking. Same money, but a different mindset. You invest in skills, in business, in assets. It doesn't feel as exciting. It doesn't give instant pleasure. But over time, it multiplies. That's the difference. Emotion spends. Logic builds. Another example. You're tired. You don't feel like working. So what do? If you follow emotion, you stop.
You delay, you rest longer than needed, and again, it feels good. But what happens long term? You fall behind, because success doesn't care about your mood. It rewards consistency. Winners understand something most people ignore. The future is built in the present. Every action you take today is shaping your tomorrow. So the question becomes, are you building or destroying? You have a choice. Let's go deeper. Why is short-term thinking so dangerous? Because it's invisible. You don't feel the damage immediately. Skipping one workout feels fine. Wasting one day feels fine. Spending a little extra feels fine. But repetition creates reality. One becomes many, and many become your life. That's the trap. It's not about one decision. It's about patterns, and emotional people build weak patterns, comfort-based patterns, excuse-based patterns, while disciplined people build strong ones, action-based patterns, growth-based patterns. That's the key. You need to start thinking differently. Before every decision, ask one question. Will this help me in the long term? Not, do I feel like it? Not, is this easy? Long term. That question will eliminate most of your bad decisions. Let's talk about sacrifice. Most people hate that word. They think it means losing something. It doesn't. It means choosing something better. You're not losing comfort. You're trading it for growth. You're not missing out. You're investing. That's the mindset shift. It's not about sacrifice. It's about strategy. That's the key. Winners don't suffer randomly. They sacrifice intentionally. They give up small pleasures to gain bigger rewards. You don't need their permission to think long term. Most people around you won't understand. They'll question you. Why are you working so much? Why are you saving instead of spending? Why are you so focused? Because they think short term, and short-term thinking always looks easier, but easy doesn't win. Let's make this practical. Start small. Next time you face a decision, pause, think, ask, is this short-term comfort or long-term gain? If it's short-term, be careful. If it's gain, move forward. That's discipline. Another rule, delay gratification. Don't take rewards immediately. Earn them. Work first, then enjoy. Build first, then relax. This rewires your brain. It trains you to associate effort with reward. That's powerful. Here's something you need to accept. The life you want requires discomfort. There's no way around it. Growth is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. Progress is uncomfortable. But that discomfort is temporary, and what it creates is permanent. Say it again. Lock it in. Short-term emotion, long-term loss. Again, short-term emotion, long-term loss. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you pay for it later. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you win later. This is the game, not talent, not luck. Time horizon. How far can you see? How long can you think? From now on, you don't chase what feels good. You chase what builds your future. You don't act emotionally. You act strategically. You don't live for today. You prepare for tomorrow. Because when you master long-term thinking, you stop sabotaging your future and you start building it, day by day, decision by decision. You've learned to think long-term. Now it's time to strengthen your control under pressure. Because thinking clearly is easy when things are calm, but real power is tested in chaos.
Chapter 8. Become emotionally neutral under pressure. Pressure reveals you. Not your words. Not your plans. Not your intentions. Your reactions. When things are calm, anyone can look disciplined. Anyone can act focused. Anyone can think clearly. But when chaos hits,
That's when the truth shows. And most people fail right there. They panic. They rush. They lose control. And in that moment, they make everything worse. That's the problem. They don't fail because of the situation. They fail because of their reaction to it. And here's the truth you need to lock in. Calm is power. Say it again. Calm is power. When pressure rises, your mind has two options: panic or stay neutral. Most people panic. Their thoughts scatter. Their emotions spike. Their decisions become rushed. And rushed decisions lead to bad outcomes. That's the pattern. But high performers, they stay neutral. Not emotional, not reactive, neutral, focused, controlled. That's the difference. Let's make it real. Something goes wrong in your business. Sales drop. A client complains. A system breaks. Immediately, pressure. Now what? If you panic, you overreact. You make fast decisions. You blame. You stress. And now you've created two problems: the original issue and your reaction to it. That's how most people operate. Now look at someone disciplined. Same situation, but no panic. No emotional explosion. Just calm. They pause. They assess. They ask, what exactly is the problem? What can I control? What is the next move? That's execution. That's power. You have to understand this. Pressure is not the problem. Your inability to handle it is. That's the key. It's not about pressure. It's about discipline. Pressure is constant. Life will always test you. Unexpected problems, delays, failures. That doesn't stop. So you have two choices: stay reactive or build control. Let's go deeper. Why do people panic? Because they focus on the outcome. What if this gets worse? What if I fail? What if I lose everything? Their mind jumps ahead. Worst case scenarios. Fear. And that fear creates panic. But winners don't do that. They don't jump ahead. They stay present. They focus on the next action. That's it. Not the entire problem, just the next step. You need to train this because it doesn't happen automatically. When pressure hits, your first instinct will be emotional. That's normal. But you don't follow it. You override it. You have a choice. Here's the system. When pressure rises, step 1, stop. No reaction. No decision. Just stop. Step 2, breathe. Slow your body down. Control your state. Step 3, simplify. What's the actual problem? Not the story. Not the fear. The real issue. Step 4, act. One step at a time. That's it. Simple, but powerful. Calm is power, because calm gives you clarity, and clarity gives you direction, while panic creates confusion, and confusion creates mistakes. Let's talk about something important. People are watching you, not when things are easy, but when things go wrong. That's when they judge your strength. That's when they decide if they trust you. If you panic, they lose confidence. If you stay calm, they follow you. That's leadership.
You don't need their permission to stay calm. Even if everyone else is losing control, even if the situation looks bad, you stay neutral. You stay focused. You stay disciplined. Because you understand, emotion doesn't solve problems. Action does. Here's another truth. Calm is not weakness. Some people think staying calm means you don't care. Wrong. It means you're in control. It means you're focused on solutions. It means you're strong enough not to react. That's real strength. Let's make it practical again. Next time something goes wrong, watch your first reaction. Do you panic? Do you rush? Do you overthink? Good. Now interrupt it. Pause. Slow down. Take control.
Then act. That's training. Over time, this becomes your default. You stop reacting emotionally. You start responding strategically. And now, pressure doesn't break you. It sharpens you. That's the goal, not to avoid pressure, but to master it. Because pressure is part of growth. Every level has it. And if you can't handle it, you can't grow. Say it again. Lock it in. Calm is power. Again. Calm is power. When everything feels chaotic, that's when you become still. When everyone else is reacting, that's when you take control. From now on, you don't panic. You don't rush. You don't lose control. You slow down. You think. You execute. Because when you stay calm under pressure, you gain an advantage most people don't have. Clarity. And clarity wins. You've learned to stay calm in chaos. Now it's time to remove another source of emotional weakness. Because even if you're calm, if you're attached to outcomes, you will still suffer. Now we fix that. Chapter 9. Detach from outcomes. Focus on actions. You are too focused on results. That's the problem. You think about success. You think about winning. You think about the outcome. And because of that, you lose control. You become anxious. You overthink. You hesitate. Why? Because outcomes are not in your control. Read that again. You don't control results. You control actions. And here's the rule you need to live by. Control actions, not outcomes. Say it again. Control actions, not outcomes. Most people are emotionally attached to results. They want success now. They want validation now. They want proof now. And when they don't get it, they feel frustrated. They feel stressed. They feel like quitting. That's emotional thinking. That's weakness. Because they're focused on something they can't control. Let's make it real. You start something, a business, a skill, a content page. Now what? You think about results. How fast will I grow? When will I succeed? What if it doesn't work? And now your mind is full of pressure. You're not focused on the work anymore. You're focused on the outcome. That's the mistake. Winners think differently. They don't obsess over results. They focus on execution, daily actions, daily progress, daily consistency. They ask, did I do the work today? Not, did I succeed today? That's the shift. That's the key. It's not about results, it's about discipline. Because results come later. Actions happen now. And only one of those is in your control. You have a choice. Obsess over outcomes or commit to actions. Most people choose outcomes. That's why they feel stuck.
Let's break this down. Outcome thinking creates anxiety because you're thinking about the future, uncertainty, possibility, fear, and your mind starts spinning. What if I fail? What if this doesn't work? What if I waste time? That pressure builds, and eventually you stop. Not because you can't do the work, but because you're overwhelmed by outcomes. Now look at action-based thinking. You ignore the future. You focus on today. What do I need to do right now? That's it. No overthinking, no pressure, just execution. And execution creates progress. Here's the truth. You don't rise to success. You build it. Action by action, day by day. There is no shortcut. There is no instant result. Only consistent work. Let's make it practical. Set action-based goals, not result-based goals. Wrong, I want to make money. I want to get followers. I want to succeed. Right, I will work 2 hours daily. I will post consistently. I will improve every week. These are actions. These are controllable, and controllable things create results. You don't need their permission to focus on your work. You don't need to prove anything today. You don't need instant success. You need consistency. That's it. Another mistake people make: they measure too early. They work for a short time, then check results. Nothing happens. They get discouraged. They stop. That's emotional behavior. Because real results take time. And if you keep checking, you keep disrupting your progress. You have to trust the process, even when you don't see results, even when it feels slow, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because something is happening. Growth is building, silently. Let's talk about detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't depend on the outcome for your identity. You do the work without emotional attachment. You execute without needing immediate reward. That's strength. Think about this. If you only feel good when results come, you will suffer most of the time, because results are delayed. But if you feel good from executing, you win every day. That's the shift. You need to rewire your reward system. Stop rewarding outcomes. Start rewarding actions. Did you show up? Did you execute? Did you stay consistent? That's success. Daily success. Say it again. Lock it in. Control actions, not outcomes. Again, control actions, not outcomes. This removes pressure. This removes anxiety. This gives you focus. From now on, you don't obsess over success. You don't chase results. You don't overthink the future. You execute, daily, consistently, relentlessly. Because when you focus on actions, results become inevitable. Not immediate, but inevitable. You've removed emotional attachment to outcomes. Now you are focused. Now you are disciplined. But there's one final level. Because even with all this, if you don't build a system, you can still fall back. Now it's time to lock everything in.
You've learned how to control your emotions. You've learned how to think clearly. You've learned how to act with discipline. But here's the truth. If you rely only on willpower, you will eventually fail. Because willpower runs out, discipline fades under pressure, and emotions come back. That's reality. So if you want permanent control, you need something stronger. You need a system. And here's the rule. Systems win when emotions fail. Say it again. Systems win when emotions fail. Most people live without systems. They wake up and decide everything. When should I work? What should I do? Do I feel like it? Too many decisions, too much thinking. And when emotions hit, they lose. They skip. They delay. They quit.
Not because they're weak, because they have no structure. Winners don't rely on constant decisions. They build systems, fixed routines, clear schedules, non-negotiable habits, things that run automatically. That's the difference. You have a choice: live emotionally or live systematically. One leads to chaos, the other leads to control. Let's make it simple. A system is something you do without thinking. No debate, no emotion, no negotiation. It's already decided. That's the key. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like it today? You just do it. Why? Because it's a system, automatic. Now imagine applying that to your work, to your fitness, to your growth. That's power. Let's make it real. Without a system, you wake up tired, you feel lazy, you skip work. With a system, you wake up and you follow the schedule. No thinking, no emotion, just execution. It's not about motivation, it's about system. That's the key. Motivation is temporary, systems are permanent. Let's go deeper. Why do systems work? Because they remove friction, they remove decision-making, and decision-making is where emotion enters. The more you decide, the more chances you have to fail. The less you decide, the more consistent you become. You need to reduce decisions, not increase them. That's how you gain control. Here's how you build a system. Step 1. Fix your time. Same time, every day. Work at 9 a.m. Gym at 7 a.m. Study at night. Not flexible, fixed. Step 2. Define your actions. Clear, specific, measurable. Not work hard, but 2 hours focused work. Not get fit, but 45 minutes training. Clarity removes confusion. Step 3. Remove options. No backup plan, no maybe later. You either do it or you break your standard. That's it. You don't need their permission to build your system. Most people won't understand it. They'll say, "Why are you so strict? Relax a bit. Take it easy." Ignore it. They are emotional. You are disciplined. Let's talk about consistency. Consistency is not about trying harder. It's about designing better. If your system is strong, you don't need to push yourself every day. You just follow the process. That's sustainable. Here's another truth. Your environment matters. If your environment supports your system, you win. If it fights your system, you struggle. So fix it. Remove distractions. Prepare your tools. Set up your space. Make execution easy. You have a choice. Make it harder or make it automatic. Let's address something important. You will not feel like following your system every day. That's normal. But your system doesn't care. That's why it works, because it operates beyond feelings. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel weak. It doesn't matter. The system stays the same, and that stability creates results. Let's make it practical. Write your daily system. Morning routine, work block, fitness, learning. Simple, clear, repeatable. Then follow it. Every day, no exceptions. At first, it will feel forced. That's okay. Stick with it, because repetition builds identity, and identity creates consistency. Over time, you stop thinking, you stop negotiating, you just execute. That's when you become dangerous. Say it again. Lock it in. Systems win when emotions fail. Again, systems win when emotions fail. When you're tired, system wins. When you're distracted, system wins. When you're unmotivated, system wins. From now on, you don't rely on feelings. You don't depend on motivation. You build systems. You follow structure. You execute daily. Because when your life is system-driven, emotions lose their power. And when emotions lose their power, you gain control. This is the final level. Not just controlling your mind, but designing your life in a way where success becomes automatic. You've done it. You've learned how to control emotions, how to think clearly, how to act with discipline. Now there's only one thing left, to live it every single day. No excuses, no breaks, no emotional decisions. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. And now you have everything you need. Go execute.
Outro. You've heard it all now. Your emotions are not your guide. They are your test. Every day you are being tested. Will you react or will you think? Will you choose comfort or will you choose growth? Winners don't eliminate emotions, they control them. They feel the same fear, the same anger, the same doubt, but they don't obey it. They act with discipline. They think with clarity. They execute without hesitation. This is the difference between staying average and becoming unstoppable. From this moment forward, you have one job. Pause before you react. Think before you act. And choose logic over emotion every single time. No excuses, no exceptions. Now prove it.